What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Ark Community Crunch video. And today, guys, we have the Shastasaurus Dossier, as well as a bunch of information for Ark Survival Ascended. Now, some of this information has been shown previously and talked about previously, but we're going to go through it once again through this. I believe it's a FAQ for ASE. Yeah, you can see there, and FAQ. So, first off, let's go over the Shastasaurus. We also have a massive musical piece here as well that I would recommend listening to. We're not going to play it here, and there's just a quick little message from Studio Wildcard if you want to have a quick read of that as well. Nonetheless, let's go into the Shastasaurus. Now, this guy, judging from what we got for the creature vote, this guy looks pretty similar in my opinion. And the concept of what made him so likable as well is still present, which I like to see. So, we've got the Shastasaurus, late Triassic, carnivore, temperament, curious. This is what it says on the dossier. We'll take a closer look at the dossier in just a second. So, the wild state. This odd variant of Shastasaurus seems as curious about humans as its distant relative Ichthyosaur. It sure got my attention when one of these sea monsters swam up to have a look at me. Luckily, its bulk turns out to be worse than its bite. Shastasaurus has weaponized the ultrasonic chirps it uses for echolocation. It can focus those sounds into a tight cone that disorients prey or widen the effect to blast apart a school of fish in a concussive wave. I'm curious about this school of fish. We don't have schools of fish in Ark. Like, there's the ichthyes and that's it. Like, also the parrotfish swarms. So I'm not sure what other schools of fishes is going to be blowing apart, but that's all we've got. Now, when it comes down to domesticated, taming a Shastasaurus was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I brought along some Ichthyosaur pals to entertain their larger cousin, while I scraped some of its itchy barnacles off with a sickle. From then on, I had a gigantic escort in deep water. Some tribes managed to kit out their finny friend with a periscope, torpedo bays, and even a cargo hold. Those Shastasaurus end up looking like something from the old kids cartoon with cavemen who turned dinosaurs into cars and submarines. So here we have the Shastasaurus in all its glory. Here are the torpedo bays and the compartment. I don't see the periscope. I'm assuming the periscope will come out of the top here, but it's essentially a submarine. Like, you've even got a little picture here as well that showcases it. So I'm very excited to see how this thing functions in game, and we can see just the sheer size of it. These here are the ichthyes, little tiny dolphin boys. Look at the size of this heifer. It's going to be easily maybe triple the size of a Mosa in terms of girth and just size and length. It's massive. As well as that, it looks like there is the compartment here to store dinosaurs. So you could essentially live on this guy in the water. As well as that, his actual taming method doesn't seem too difficult. All you need to do is scrape some barnacles off it with a sickle by the sounds of it, and it'll become your friend. Obviously, there's probably going to be more to it than that, but it sounds like a very easy tame. The saddle itself could possibly be a tech tier saddle as well, and only limited to tech tiers, purely because of this compartment, I would wager. This is all purely guessing though, so, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But it does look like you've got some very clear space there to store some dinosaurs. Don't know if we're talking Rex size, maybe like Carno Allo size you would be able to fit in there. Don't know if you'd be able to fit any bigger, but there's definitely enough space in there to fit quite a few dinos. So I'm very excited to see this guy in game, and we are going to have to wait till ASE drops before we get this guy in action. But I do like how they kept it similar to the community vote. Now let's head on back here to the Ark Survival Ascended Q&A. So we're going to recap some of the information we've shared regarding Ark Survival Ascended in this crunch, along with touching on some topics that haven't been covered and expanding on some that have. If you've been following along for the last few months, you might already know some of this information, but we've seen a lot of questions lately, so let's start with the basics before diving into some of the frequently asked questions from the community. So if you already know about ASA, feel free to skip this bit. I will slowly scroll through for it if you guys want to have a quick read of it. If you do want to have a quick read of it, just pause it through the video so you can catch a glimpse of it. But I do, like, this is most of the reason why we're getting ASE anyway, instead of Ark 2. In hindsight, I reckon they just haven't developed Ark 2. That's purely my theory. So there's that bit. We'll come down here and you can see here how you're leveraging the new technology. So they go on to say that they've rewritten everything by hand, full cross-platform multiplayer, as well as quality of life improvements, balance and gameplay changes, including but not limited to a whole bunch of this stuff. So over time, they plan on releasing 11 brand new creatures, which is pretty cool. They've got a new minimap system, new structures, new gameplay items, dynamic navigation mesh, and creature pathfinding overhaul, which honestly is probably what I'm most excited for, that the dinos hopefully act more natural sort of thing. Total UI revamp, photo mode, a new camera system for players and dinos, new player character assets, gamepad virtual cursor UI input system, new dino manager system. This actually sounds pretty cool too. View the real-time status and track locations of all your creatures at will through one unified menu. Before we only had the transponders, and they were absolutely dog shit if you ever tried using one for your dinos, and much more. So a key thing to remember is that Ark Survival Ascended will include all its previously released DLCs and maps in its remastered form and will have its own content roadmap. This will include new story content for the game, its own gameplay / quality of life changes, new DLC, seasonal events, and more. Some things we're not quite ready to talk about yet. Don't forget that ASE is also launching in early access. It's not even a completed game yet, so they're only launching it in early access. So let's keep going in here. Will there be a pre-order, get access to the early game exclusive content preloading? No, flat out, none of that. Can't pre-order it, can't get early access to it. There's no exclusive content. Content creators aren't getting early access to the game either. Tell us more about crossplay. How will that work? So they have a 3-phase system for rolling out the crossplay, and it'll allow them to iterate more rapidly after launching. So essentially, they are launching. It's not going to be crossplay, and then they're going to be linking it up as it gets further along the line. I'll leave it there so you guys can have a read of it. So you can see here are the phases that they are talking about for the crossplay. Crossplay will be enabled for Xbox Series X/S, Windows PC, and PlayStation 5. Crossplay will not work for Steam PC at launch. So they're going to have a lot of patches that they're going to need to do at launch, which is why Steam isn't going to be linked up, because they will be able to quickly resolve it on Steam through that cycle. And if they do link it up, it's essentially not going to be working as smoothly as they want. So phase 2, full crossplay timeframe, December. This is a wildcard ETA, so most likely we won't see it till like January or February. So crossplay is now enabled for all platforms, meaning Steam can play with Xbox and vice versa. So you'll be able to see that, and PC will have access to Xbox and all the other consoles. Phase 3, cross progression timeframe 2024. Cross progression isn't going to be enabled with full crossplay because we'll need to integrate some forthcoming updates to the Epic Online service systems. So cross progression essentially means you can play on your Xbox, transfer that over to computer, play on your PlayStation, transfer that over to your Xbox if you wanted to. That's what the cross progression is. So what changes have been made to servers? Now, there's quite a few changes here that have been made. So staseless replication range for structures and dinos has been increased by about 70%. So now when you're flying away or moving away from your structures or your dinos, they de-render much further away now. So an extra 70%, which I think is cool. And it also means that the rendering of the structure tile sets, meaning bases, are going to be running a lot better as well. So it sounds, in hindsight, pretty cool. We don't have anything to really base this off, so we just have to kind of wait. They're also keeping the service capped at 70 players. And as well as that, they are going to try and optimize it as well. And official players will be able to increase to 100 players as well. So that's going to be crazy. What content changes have been made for day one? Caves, rafts, CRYOPODS, techs, giant squirrels. I'm not sure where the giant squirrel part comes from, but we'll take it. So this is a hot topic, and we wanted to clarify our intentions, but we wouldn't be surprised if some things have slipped through the cracks. Generally, we intend to release content based on the map it launched with. It doesn't matter when it launched. For example, the rafts will be available on day one and the Rhinonathia on the island. However, tech creature variants and cryopods will not be available. We do not have access to cryopods on day one. Now, they have also done a pass on caves with some balance adjustments and choke points to improve the cave's eternal appearance. They didn't want to make dramatic changes to the cave balance while the meta has had flaws. They didn't feel that a complete overhaul was wise. So between these changes and other adjustments throughout the game, we expect to see some shifts in the meta players create, and we plan to monitor the impact of these moving parts in the hands of thousands of players and pivots as needed post-launch. This is what I'm worried about. They have already done this with the original Ark that we've got now, but they're not keeping PvE players and PvP players separately. So dinos getting nerfed for PvP will essentially transition over to PvE which doesn't necessarily apply to PvE players, which I think is kind of crappy. So here are a number of changes on the gameplay side: overhauled building, disabled leveling of movement speed on creatures and players on official networks. Ooh, that's crazy. Unofficials can change this via config, of course. I can see this being a good thing for official. Unofficial, not so much. And for dinos as well. Like, I don't think dino movement speed leveling really has that much of an effect. I can see it has a massive effect on players, however. So I can see why they've done that for officials. But yeah, small dino quality of lives. Doesn't sound like TLC for a lot of the dinos, which kind of sucks. As well as that breeding changes. Now, this is a big one. So this one sounds scary. We know our product and QA teams were freaking out about it. But generally, our intention hasn't been to change the strength of creatures, but to make the implementation cleaner. Previously, mutations were based on a creature's wild stat multiplier, and now we're giving it its multiplier. This has led to some creatures receiving some buffs/nerfs in particular stats, but we intend to rebalance this over time as we evaluate their roles in the meta. We have also not fixed getting more than 20 mutations, but we removed the 255 cap, so that service can specify a cap. That's pretty good too. We'll leave it as is for our officials at 255, but it's open to adjust. So a lot of changes that they're making. Hopefully, like I said, my main concern is the PvP-PvE balance side of things. They've also character creation overhaul. So they've remade the character creation and look less survival jank. And we successfully did that. But then we decided to say screw it and allow you to mess with all the bones and scalers anyway. So we're still going to be able to make the crazy looking characters as well. Is there new Gareth Coker music? Sorry, in the main menu. Can't hear you over the new Gareth Coker music. That answers that question for you. DLSS, RTX DI, and FrameGen. We're working very closely with NVIDIA on all these things. They're actually in our game code and themselves doing it. Doing all the things you can read about on these systems as well here. But our goal is to launch with as much as we can or have it shortly after that. Then they discuss why they're using Unreal Engine 5.2 and not 5.3. Short answer is because 5.3 has just come out and they've been using 5.2. Gameplay when? You will 100% be able to see the game via a trailer/screenshot before you purchase the game in October. So essentially it's going to be launching with the trailer by the sounds of it. What about cheaters? They are still working on the anti-cheat system and they're not sharing any more information at the moment. And they'll also be doing bounty programs as well with ASA. For those of you that remember, they did launch a bounty program with Ark Survival Evolved, where essentially if you outed cheaters, you'd get money. They'd send you money and pay you money. Survival of the Fittest 5.0, they're also going to be including that as well. However, it won't be available at launch. They still intend to do it, but we'll be putting our time, resources into remastering the game to make it possible. Essentially, they've run out of funding and they're waiting for the sales of ASA to get the money to fund SOTF. 100% that's the reason why. With no SOTF, will there still be a queue? There will not be a queue system at launch, given that we intended to have it implemented with SOTF. We're still weighing up the technicalities of implementing this and whether it's worth it for the game. Depends on the direction we take SOTF. So yeah, doesn't look good for SOTF. Events, Extra Life, ASA content. We'll still be doing these. The first ASA event will be Extra Life, bonus rates and all that jazz. And then we'll be doing our first content related event in December with the launch of Winter Wonderland. And just as mentioned above, ASA has its own content roadmap as well, but it's too soon to talk about that. Let's get the game out first, then we can talk about the roadmap. Creature submissions, what's the plan? So they go to say that the Shasta Dossier has taken them so long because of everything they needed to do and make sure that it was viable without destroying the game, and they're getting it done. This kind of threw a spanner in our calendar for doing creature votes. We might take a break because voter fatigue is creeping in. Plus, once ASA ships, the meta might establish a need for different types of creature, and we want to give you time before the next vote to think about that. So a bunch of that stuff as well, and they go on to say that they've been intentionally very quiet over the last years. They've worked aggressively on shipping ASA. Once the game is out the door, we intend to do a 180 and we'll become more directly engaged with the community. So a whole bunch of information here today about it all. You guys can check it out on their official website as well, Survive the Ark. It'll have it all there. We then have the rest of the stuff of the community corner with Monarchy's newest system kicking off. Check that out for the Hunted mod. Bit of a funny here, creator Ras Clark, but it's actually Daddy D-Mac that made the video. So I'm not sure if they're aware of that yet. And we've got Fire Pumpkin as well from the Architect singing a sea shanty. We've also got some fan art here. That aloe looks sick. And then we've got some extra stuff just down here. So guys, what do you... Ooh, that is really pretty. What do you guys think of the information that they gave us? Do you think it's enough to tide us over to October? And what do you think of the Shastasaurus dossier? Let me know in the comments what you think about it all, and let me know whether or not you enjoyed the video. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will catch you in the next one.